If you are under the age of 108, I can almost guarantee that this video is going to be applicable to you or someone that you know. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reese, and in today's video, I'm going to be discussing the concept of is FOMO stealing your savings and what you can do about it to avoid this common trap. FOMO is the fear of missing out, and it can generally be applied to anything, and depending on the circumstances that it is being applied to, that will determine how impactful it is on your life. In this instance, I am specifically talking about the relationship between your desire to feel included and the toll that it will take on your finances. FOMO has been coined as the new term for keeping up with the Joneses. However, you're no longer keeping up with your neighbors in your local neighborhood. You're now trying to compete against the world, which from a financial point of view, that is unsustainable. There will always be someone who is more well off, someone who's richer, someone with friends in high places that can help them, and someone who gets lucky with their investments. These situations of FOMO can be observed across all age groups. I remember back in my teenage years, it was particularly common because teenagers, let's face it, they're not very good at hiding their emotions. So, when their thoughts are coming from a place of jealousy, that fear of missing out is very, very obvious, especially when kids are mean. Kids act in a way that definitely isn't nice, and you see it every single day. I'm sure that you will have been able to relate to this at some point in your life, considering you probably were a teenager or are one if you're watching this video. And at the other end of this spectrum, I constantly see the older generations trying to one-up each other, and being the nosy person that I am, I know that a lot of these decisions, or a lot of their financial decisions, are being made by taking on debt. So with that out of the way, why is this bad, and how can you tell if you're falling into the trap of FOMO? In simple terms, it's bad because it can cause you to make irresponsible decisions with your money. These decisions then can cause a ripple effect, which over time can become a bad habit. It's the very beginning, or the spark, that can set you on the path to basically ruining yourself financially and then putting yourself into a position that you can never recover from. If you think about it like this, when you're a teenager, it's generally pretty easy for you to keep up with your friends. For the most part, generally if you work a casual job, your friend buys a brand new phone, even a car at some point, that's generally what a lot of people save up for. You're going to be able to get something that can get you from A to B that you love driving. It might not be a Lamborghini, and I highly doubt most people would be in a position to do that, so generally the playing fields are the same. The FOMO is a bit of a grind to keep up with because sure, you might want the car. I'm just saying in general terms, if your friend buys one, you're going to see that and say, oh, I want one too. I want to achieve that. So theoretically, at those teenage years, you're going to be able to keep up with the people that you are experiencing FOMO with. The problem is that this sets the standard, and as you start to get older, the things that you're wanting to keep up with, the things that you're wanting to buy, will statistically be more expensive to keep up with said person. Leading me directly into an example like your friends buying a house in an area that they absolutely cannot afford. I actually know someone who did this recently. They bought a house in an area that they could not afford. They took on massive amounts of debt that they probably can't service. Time will tell. It'll be very interesting to see, purely from what it looks like to keep up with the other friends who bought in that area. That is definitely not healthy. Not just only from a financial perspective, but consider it from a mentality perspective as well. You think about it, if they are barely able to make ends meet, they're struggling to make their repayments, which I've done the calcs, and realistically, it's not going to be easy for them. Good on them for trying, but is it responsible? Who knows? Imagine having extra strain, extra stress on your brain, just as an example, when it doesn't need to be there, especially if it's in the house, the place that you're supposed to feel safe and comfortable. Imagine that space not giving you what you need, that space basically becoming a hostile situation. Imagine what it would do to your relationship. I'm diving in deep here, but I think it is important to say it out loud. It is something to definitely understand and consider when making decisions, and seeing how it can spiral from those teenage years all the way through to these adult years, and how much of an impact it can have on people's lives. Time will tell with them, but it just looks from the outside, it looks very much like they have jumped into the trap of FOMO, and we will see if there are repercussions coming out of it. Now, for you, the viewer, the best way to determine if you are someone who falls into the trap of FOMO is basically to look closer at your relationship between friends, family, and probably celebrities as well. I think that we're in the type of world where that would be applicable as well. Be honest with yourself and question the things that you spend your money on, that you see these people, these family, these friends, and these, we'll call them celebrities, see what they spend money on too. Actually question it. Are you buying it for you, for a purpose, or for a need? Or are you buying it because someone else has one too? A great place to start is with what I'm going to call nightlife culture. I'm going to, in quotations, I'm going to call it nightlife culture. Do you have friends that eat out regularly or will spend copious amounts of money on alcohol on a night out? This is one that I identified pretty quickly when I was growing up. The people that I would hang around with would spend pretty freely. They probably spent more than they should have because they would regret it most mornings after, and their bank accounts definitely took a hit for it. After a few weekends of doing this, I realized how unsustainable it was and decided to make a change. I put some rules in place that I would follow when I was put in situations like this to not get dragged into the trap of FOMO. I am almost certain that there will be a scenario in your head or a memory where you have fallen into the trap of FOMO and been irresponsible with your money. I guess the question coming out of this is, are you still in that trap? Do you still get persuaded easily to do things that you might seriously regret doing after, especially if this is an ongoing thing? Using the nightlife example, if you're going out every single weekend, you're spending anywhere between, in Australia, a lot of money on a night out, I would say is anything above $100. I know people who spend $300 to $400 a week going out to town, going out to eat, going out to drink, just as examples. I know it's super common in a lot of different cultures as well, and it's definitely a great place to start. Apply the same logic and questioning to that scenario for everything, and really consider it, because you could probably work it out pretty quickly how much money you are throwing away when you potentially don't need to be throwing away all of it. I'm not telling you not to do this. I'm just telling you that you may be being influenced in certain areas of your life that you don't necessarily want to be, and you're kind of unconsciously doing it right now. Something to think about. So if you do have some scenarios in your mind or memories that have made you aware that you potentially might fit into this category of falling into the FOMO trap with specific things you do, let's look at things that you can now do to avoid continuing down this path and falling into this trap further. The first and most important thing you can do is be aware of where your money is going. Tracking your finances and understanding where your money goes gives you basically data to work with. What does that data become useful for? It means that you can set spend limits because you basically know what you're spending money on, different activities, different outings, and different experiences. And by doing this, when you fall into this trap of your friend says, come on, let's go out for the night, you can literally pull up your information, check it, and say, I can't tonight. I've spent too much on whatever this activity was for the week. Doesn't mean you can't do it. Doesn't mean you can't allocate some money to it. And it doesn't mean that you can't do it in the future. It just means that you're being a little bit more cautious with your money, and you're almost regulating it to the point that you don't go over those spend limits, and you have, we'll call it, I believe it would create excess cash flow, which you could then purpose for other things. Another thing that is definitely worth doing is actually talking to these people in your life that influence you. I have found doing this was really productive. I've spoken to some of my friends about these specific topics, and it's so funny because they say the exact same thing in return. So we kind of identified that we were both doing this. We were both trying to keep up with each other, and we both didn't necessarily want to do this. We were only doing it because basically it was a back and forth. Each of us were competing with each other, and the outcome from it was we basically dropped whatever it was that we were doing, and the competition eased. The peace between the friendship got better. And in general speaking terms, it was a pretty simple conversation to have. So that's something that a lot of people I feel wouldn't consider doing, is as simple as communicating with that person that you're potentially being influenced by. Let them know how you're feeling and see if the feelings are mutual. See if it will completely change how you approach that specific topic in the future. I guess in a simple sentence, it can cause you to change your spending habits altogether and hold each other accountable, but in a positive manner. One that I personally recommend you do is follow the 2-week rule. This is absolutely worth doing if you're someone who has very poor impulse control or is easily affected by FOMO. I have left a link down in the description below to the video that I have made on the topic. So check that out if you're interested. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. It helps the channel grow so much. So Thank you. Planning ahead is also a really good way to get on top of FOMO. This can be done in two ways in particular. The first being to just get on top of your finances in general. Now, on my channel alone, there is an abundance of resources to help you start doing this. But online in general, the topic of finance is now super popular. It has become so much more popular since when I was younger, and I believe it's only going to get popular as things get more expensive and the world gets harder to live in at the same levels that other people want to live at. So realistically, just getting on top of your finances in general is an invaluable thing you can do, and it's all baby steps. It's one step at a time, so it shouldn't be too overwhelming just to get started. And the second part of this is to actually plan your purchases. So specifically start saving just because now, so that when the time comes, you can buy things without having to worry too much about falling into the trap of FOMO and putting yourself, we'll use in debt as an example, pulling out that credit card to make a purchase on something that you couldn't necessarily afford at that period in time. Again, something that I have done for a long period of time now, and I have nice things and I can buy them when I need to purely because I have put that planning and effort into that process. Everyone is different. You will save at different rates. Absolutely. I'm just saying that planning some of your purchases out, or planning to put yourself in a position where you can spend an extra couple of $100s on this weekend because you're in a good habit of saving and you've got the discipline down to not fall into the trap of FOMO, it will elevate your way of life in a way that I can't explain it to you. If you experience it, you'll understand what I mean. I'm here to encourage you to give it a go. And finally, don't overcomplicate it. This is the easiest thing you can do. And when you have a good understanding of where you stand, take a step back and really take the time to look at your progress. This is the reward for putting in the hard work. This is a journey and it will take time to adjust to, but it is an important one to go through. Learning how to deal with FOMO is now unfortunately part of people's development. I'll go as far to say it's quite sad that people these days actually have to learn how to deal with it. You need to decide if you want to be someone who falls into this trap and gets bogged down by the effects of falling into this trap, or would you rather be someone who is in control and happy with your spending? I'll leave that up to you to decide. Overall, I hope you learned something in today's video. I hope I made you think about the topic that I was talking about. To me, personally, it's an interesting one. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to like and subscribe down below. I really appreciate the support. And as always, I will see you in the next one.